We're going to be talking about fiber to the home call outs or fiber to the home stuff today. If these videos help you guys, please like and subscribe. Throw me a donation. I'll keep making more videos to try to help you guys, because God knows if I could still see, I'd be in the field bidding on the jobs I'm trying to help you guys learn how to do. So we're going to be talking about my particular home infrastructure. I spliced up most of this telephone company's fiber to the home stuff before I went blind. If you're not familiar with using fiber optic troubleshooting tools, diagnostic tools, watch the previous call out video to learn about what they are. We're going to also need a few more things today to troubleshoot or to even just build these jobs and test them out, which I'm going to show in this video. But let's understand the theory of operation before we get into trying to diagnose anything. So the way this fiber to the home setup is by splitters and MST pigtails or dongles. Okay, so this is a poor illustration of a Coyote 1. You can see we've got our input cable, the CO cable going into it. We've got our field side cable coming out of it. And then there is a pigtail MST or a dongle. However, the unit code, whatever the particular company calls it, there's terminology that calls a lot of stuff different things. So we're going to call it an MST pigtail. This pigtail is going to be spliced to the splitter that's inside this splice case that goes to the MST boxes that are mounted on the poles that the installers plug their drops into to go fiber to the home. Okay, the way these splitters work is the CO side of that cable that just entered that Coyote 1, one of those fibers out of that cable will heat up. The input side, you'll splice to the input side of this splitter. That one fiber has now been turned into however big this splitter is. Let's say it's a 1x16. So now there's 16 hot fibers out of the one fiber coming from the CO. Once we've spliced up our input side and turned all 16 of these fibers into hot fibers, what we're doing is we're splicing the output of the splitter to the fibers of that MST pigtail that was coming out of the back side of the center of that Coyote 1. Now, however many fibers that you splice into this pigtail is how many times they can plug in an MST box that goes on a pole and then daisy chain out of the next one. So if we take fibers 1 through 5 out of this splitter that we've made hot now on the output side of the splitter, they basically become our CO to this field side of dongle. Now we've got 5 spans of MST that can be plugged in. One box plugs into this pigtail. It runs 350 feet, gets mounted to a pole. Then the next one gets plugged into that box and daisy chained another 350 feet to a pole. And each one of those MST boxes have 4, 6, 8, however many ports on them, and that's how many drops can go to homes. So here at the CO, we'll leave with a cable, however many fibers that they're using to power up this particular job. In this situation, the FDP, the panel inside the CO, first goes into a vault. There are splice cases in a vault, like a basement dungeon of this CO. Then they go outside in the manhole. They briefly pull through manholes until a riser point into the air. There's another splice. It goes down the street around the corner, a couple more splice points, and then at this splice location here, we've got what they call dongles or MST pigtails that I'll put a picture up of. Now, if we spliced 1 through 5 of the output fibers of that splitter to the first 5 fibers of that MST pigtail, what happens is they'll plug in one of those MST boxes with a long spool cable on it, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 feet. They'll plug the first one into that pigtail that's hanging out the back of the splice case. They'll run it however far to a pole and they'll mount it. Then there's an output port on that MST box. They'll plug in the next MST box pigtail or connector into that box and they'll daisy chain it to the next pole. Then they'll plug another one in and daisy chain it to the next pole. So those 5 fibers out of that splitter just heated up 5 8-port MST boxes that are mounted on different poles throughout this neighborhood. Whatever MST box is assigned to my house, the installers can put their hooks on, grab a ladder, whatever, go up there. They'll plug a drop cable into the port on that MST box, and they'll run it to the side of the house. At the side of the house, there's what they call a NID, a network interface device. That's where it will plug into their equipment. Basically, it goes from OSP to inside plant is basically all that thing does. And then it gives it the ability to patch over into their equipment inside the home. Now, from this point to this point, my house, there's a lot of potentials for trouble, especially when you get to this splice case here where the MST pigtail is, and you've got all those fibers that are hot now going to God knows how many houses. You want to be real careful when you're in there doing maintenance or troubleshooting anything, because if you break that input fiber to that splitter, every single house went dark. You're going to have one heck of mad telephone company calling you. You do not want to take down active stuff, especially during the day. That's why they schedule maintenance windows in the middle of the night. 9 out of 10 times, your trouble on this particular style of fiber to the home is going to be from the output side of the splitter, the 16 fibers that came out of that splitter, to the network interface device mounted on the side of your house. Usually it's an MST box. Something chewed through the cable, bro, they're just junk. Whenever I go test MST boxes, I've got it all spliced up, and I know for a fact that at the pigtail here, before we ever started daisy chaining, I did my test results and every one of them were good. But I get out here to these MST boxes and I'm starting to get bad readings. Pop the top, pull that MST thing out of that thing that it mounts in, pull it out just a little bit and pop it in. It almost always fixes it. If not, you can clean the ends of all those connectors, no different than cleaning connectors and bulkheads in a panel or in your equipment. It's really hard to use OTDRs on these daisy chains. When you're out here troubleshooting and trying to diagnose what a problem is, you're almost always going to be using your red light, your power meter light source, and a lot of times you're going to need a second guy to help you. It's imperative to have the adapters and the correct jumpers and the stuff to be able to plug to these MST cables to test them, and also to plug to the MST pigtail at the splice case. You're not going to get anywhere at all if you don't have those adapters and cables to test with. It's really not that challenging to figure out a trouble up to this point from the CO. It's just opening splice cases, clipping on with your live fiber identifier, checking along the way, because it's plugged in, everybody's active, we just got one house down. It's pretty obvious that our trouble isn't from here. It's a from here past point, okay? So let's say our trouble is right here, but we don't know that yet. It just so happens that the fiber number 5 is broken in here or whatever, something fell on it, whatever, fiber number 5 went down, which means our 5th MST that's been daisy chained down here is dark now. So I'm gonna go to the house, I'm gonna unplug it at the NID, check my light there, we're dark, okay. I'm gonna go up here to the MST at the top of the pole that the drop's plugged into. I'm gonna check it for light in the port. It's dark. At this point, what I'm gonna do is, I know I'm not getting traffic on it from the splice case, but I also know that no one else along this line has called in any trouble. So I'm gonna plug in a red light right here. I'm gonna go back a pole and I'm gonna open up that port and look in there and visually see, oh, I still see the red light shining. So I'm gonna plug that back up. I'm gonna go to the next pole and unplug it and look in that port and say, oh, I still see the red light shining. I'm gonna do that all the way until I get back to the splice case. And when I get to the splice case and I unplug it from the pigtail and I look in there, I'm not gonna see that red light. So I'm gonna know my trouble is between the splice case and that first pole. It's that one section of MST. So all the telephone company has to do is come out there with another 350 footer, cut that, unplug it from the pigtail, undo it from the pole, drop it down, mount the new one to the pole, run it over and plug it into the MST pigtail, boom, done deal. A lot of this stuff is just common sense, process of elimination, but once you've got hot stuff, you've got to be careful, because maintenance stuff, they don't like when service goes down. They don't like that, and it makes a company look real bad. So you got to be real cautious. Your number one job out there is to cover your ass and your company's ass. Secondly, figure out the problem and get it done. Hope that helps.